with the population density of white-tailed deer, we took 2, the number of the species we saw, divided by 203,671.02 to equal 0.000087 deer per square mile in the prairie. Although we only saw 2 deer, this is the estimated deer density from 1994 to 2000 in Wisconsin.
Now for population growth. Biotic potential is the ability for a species to grow in a population under ideal conditions. Organisms, however, tend to not fulfill their biotic potential, for they don't live under those ideal environmental conditions. Rather, population growth is affected by density-dependent factors like lack of food, lack of space, predators, competition, disease, waste, or etc., or density-independent factors such as weather, natural disasters, or pollution. For white-tailed deer, the reproductive rate is that of female deer give birth to 1 deer their first pregnancy, which is around the age of 2, and then can have 2 to 3 offspring during their second pregnancy. They have a gestation period of 7 months. For their birth rate, since deer only have 1 to 3 babies at a time, and they have a longer developmental in pregnancy, the birth rate is slower than that of an exponential birth rate of bacteria or other organisms. White-tailed deer are key strategists due to the species being suited to stable environments, producing large offspring, and providing protection for those offspring. For the death rate of deer, hunting, disease, competition, and many other factors have a decreasing effect on the population size. The average lifespan of a white-tailed deer is 2 to 3 years, but in the wild they can live up to a max of 20 years, but very few live past the age of 10. For immigration and emigration, white-tailed deer they both typically cancel each other out in an environment with deer. Buck yearlings after birth will typically disperse and emigrate out of an environment to immigrate into a new one. Deer migrate for they have different habitats for the different seasons, such as summer and winter. Limiting factors to the biotic potential biotic potential is food, competition for mates, territory, and density dependent.
Competition for white-tailed deer consists of insects as well as other herbivores in the prairie for food source. The closer the population gets to its carrying capacity, the more limited the space and resources become, creating more competition. The ecological niche is the role and position a species has in its environment, how it meets its needs for food and shelter, how it survives, and how it reproduces. The white-tailed deer's niche is the prairie, where they drink from the pond, eat the plentiful food source of grass. They live in the prairie and can go in and out whenever they please, but they are able to sleep and herd in the prairie.
For predator-prey relationships, the white-tailed deer is a predator in the prairie. Deer themselves have very few predators that live in the prairie, but since it is a herbivore, it isn't a predator to the other animals in the prairie, but instead on the grass and plants of the prairie. A possible predator that could be seen in the prairie would be the coyote. Outside of the prairie ecosystem, the deer becomes a prey to many other predators, including coyote, wolves, bobcats, mountain lions, bears, and humans. For symbiotic relationships, one example would be a parasitic relationship between the deer and a tick. The deer tick, which is the parasite, gets food and nutrients when it attaches to its host organism, the white-tailed deer. In a parasitic relationship, although one organism benefits while the other is harmed, the tick's purpose is not to kill the deer, for otherwise they wouldn't have a host to survive off of. Another example would be a mutualistic relationship between the red stag and starlings. The starlings eat the parasites off the red stag, so starling gets food and the deer is losing the parasites on itself.
The flow of energy would be that sunlight allows for plants to grow by providing energy, and once a plant grows, herbivores such as deer come along and eat them, and then a coyote in the prairie would be able to eat the deer. Secondary succession is a series of community changes which take place on a previously colonized but disturbed or damaged habitat. When the prairie is burned down to promote new growth, this causes the deer not to inhabit the prairie for a while because it no longer provides them with a habitat or a food source. Once the prairie is again full of food source and can provide a habitat, deer will soon return.